Good morning, Mr. Janani and friends. I am Casandra, and today I'll be doing my oral pitch presentation for BAR300 Advanced Research in the Arts. Before I start my presentation, let me bring you through the content that I'll be covering in today's oral pitch presentation. First off, I'll start off with the research topic, followed by the objective, followed by the data and statistics, and then the motivation that generates my research topic, followed by the literature review where I'll showcase similar research that have been done on this topic, followed by the activities that I'm planning to do, and then the grants, and then the volunteers, and finally the cost breakdown. So today my research topic will be on how are we going to prevent our dialects from dying and losing its culture among the millennials in Singapore today. My objective is that I would like to promote intergeneration communication between the millennials and the elderly. Why is this so? Because many millennials today, including myself, does not know our own dialect, nor do we know how to speak our own dialect. Therefore, making it difficult for us to communicate with the elderly as well as our own grandparents. And therefore, this also can help us to prevent our dialect from dying as well as losing its culture in Singapore today. Moving on to the data and statistics, now I will talk about the pie chart that you have seen on the left, where it states the distribution of dialects in Singapore. This is taken from the NUS blog published by Annie Yeo Wen Ting on the April 7, 2014. As you can see on the left, these are the numbers of dialects that we have in Singapore, mainly the Hokkien, Teochew, Cantonese, Hakka, Hainanese, and others. As you can see, the majority of the dialects used in Singapore is actually Hokkien, which have a 41% of it, followed by Teochew with 21%, Cantonese 15%, Hakka 11%, Hainanese another 12%. In the next data and statistic that we are looking at is the General Household Survey done by the Department of Statistics Singapore. This was done in 2015. As you can see on the right, these are the two charts that actually show the number of people who speak dialects in Singapore. From the first one above the picture that you see, the pie chart, is a comparison between 2010 and 2015. So let's look at the 2010 pie chart. The number of people who speak Chinese dialect at home is actually 14.3%. However, when you look at 2015, the number actually reduced to 12.2%. This shows that more and more Singaporeans has not spoke Chinese dialects in their home. The below chart actually shows the correspondent numbers on the above pie chart. However, they have put it in the bar chart format so that it's easier for us to compare and see the differences between 2010 and 2015. Besides the two statistics that I mentioned above that contribute parts to why I generate this research topic, now let's move on to the other two images that you have seen on the left side of the slide. These two actually contribute to my research as well. Because of these two, it made me want to come up with this research topic. As you can see, firstly, this is the one on today's online channel where they actually talk about youth must learn dialect or risk losing part of their culture. This is very important because many of us today does not know how to speak dialect. And it is very important for us to actually know how to speak, because if we do not know how to speak, sooner or later we will lose our culture and we will not know what our dialect is, and we are not able to share this culture down to or pass this culture down to our children and our grandchildren. With the next one that you see in the bottom left is from Channel News Asia, where it say that more young Singaporeans signing up for dialect classes. And this actually shows that many Singaporeans youngsters nowadays are aware that we do not know our own dialect and our own culture. Therefore, we find that it is important for us to actually look for classes that can help us to build our own culture and to learn our own dialect, so that we are able to pass this down to our future generation. With that, this is why from the statistic and from these two articles, it made me had the urge to come up with this research topic. Moving on to the literature review, this slide is where I'll show you some similar research that have been done by others on the research topic that I'm doing. So the first one I'm going to show you is the journal article titled Burdens and Handicaps in Singapore's Language Policy on the Limits of Language Management. This is done by Leonard Wee, where he published it on 2009. Why I say that this is a relevant journal article and is similar to my research topic is because I basically agree with his statement. In one paragraph, he stated that one consequence of the replacement of other dialects with Mandarin was the creation of a communication gap between the older and younger generation, so that in fact grandparents in particular had difficulty communicating with their grandchildren. I really agree to this statement because I personally myself, when I talk to my grandparents, I do not know my own dialect, and therefore I have been using Mandarin to communicate with them. And in return, in order to communicate with me, they have to try their best to speak as much Mandarin as they know. And in turn, this will end up actually cause communication gap between the both of us. And the next statement that he actually mentioned was, this has on occasion led to concerns among young Singaporeans that this cultural loss is potentially irreversible, as the opportunity for the young Singaporeans to learn and practice dialects will die out with the dying breed of older Singaporeans. And this is very true because when an older generation like their grandparents have passed on, it is very difficult for young Singaporeans to actually learn and practice dialects. And it's only when they are around, it is the possible time where actually we can learn dialects from them and practice dialect and try to communicate with them, so that this culture will never be lost in the future, as well as it will not die out. And moving on is the second article that I came across, which is similar to the research topic that I've done, is 3 Generations Under One Roof, a study of the influence of the presence of grandparents on language shift, identity, and attitudes. This journal article is done by Sherman Tan Jin Hao and Bin Chin Ng. And in this article, the both of them actually mentioned that by using English and Mandarin rather than Chinese dialects in grandparents and grandchild interaction, the cross-generation input and transmission of dialect is lost. Like I mentioned in the previous article that I said, when you communicate in Mandarin, it tends, when you communicate Mandarin with your grandparents, it ends up that the dialect that you are born with is already going to be lost in the future because you do not know your own culture and your own dialect. And they even state that although grandparents live under the same roof, the grandchildren cannot reap the benefits of their presence because the opportunity to converse in Chinese dialects with their grandparents is almost non-existent. And this is actually a very sad thing because grandparents and grandchildren are supposed to be having a close relationship. However, due to the both generations are not able to speak dialects and communicate with one another smoothly, therefore it will end up people having generation gap, communication gap, as well as distant relationship between one another. This is something that it is not likable, and it's not something that we want it to happen in the future as well. In the third article that I came across is the article on ethnographic family research, predicament and possibilities of doing field work on intergenerational relations in Singapore by Christina Goranson. In her article, she mentioned that many Singaporeans today prefer to speak English and has considered English as their first language. It is no doubt that English is the main universal language that actually used by every one of us to communicate around the world, as well as one another of different culture, especially in Singapore where we are a multicultural society. However, if you are using English to communicate with your grandparents, it is not advisable because some grandparents are still living in the older generation where they have not learned English. And if you communicate with them in English, this will cause communication gap between the two generations, and it will distance your relationship with your grandparents. And can you imagine that in the future, if your child actually asks you what is your dialect, or how do you speak your own dialect, or what dialect is he or she, it will be very embarrassing that you could not even tell your child what the dialect is because you personally was not taught on your own dialect, and you do not know how the dialect is being spoken. This in turn will actually lose out in the future, and it is something that is very I would say wasted, because dialect itself is actually something that identify who you are as a Chinese, which cultural background you are from, and it's something that is meant to be preserved and to pass down to future generation. Next, it will bring me to the article on the promoting intergenerational understanding between the young and old, the case of Singapore, by Ling Tan. In this article, she actually mentioned that developing the volunteerism spirit among the younger generation through care for the elderly encourage community bonding and to bridge the gap between young and old Singaporeans through social activities to promote better understanding and sharing of experience among them. This is also the reason why I wanted to do this activity, so as to encourage volunteerism between the youth, for the youth, and to let them bridge to connect back their gap between the elderly and the youth. And she also mentioned in the article that it is through all these activities that before the activities that they actually participated, they actually have little understanding and awareness of older generation around them. And after going through activities or volunteering with elderly, it actually made them be aware of their surrounding and be more understanding to older generation. They also make them have a renewed interest about their own grandparents and the desire to understand a more realistic perception of old age and awareness of life course perspective, where the elderly represent pictures of themselves in the future. This is very crucial to create opportunity for intergenerational interaction, because when you do such intergeneration activities, you actually bringing the grandparents and grandchildren together, and you are making their relationship stronger and closing the gap between them. And they may initially doesn't know much about their grandparents, nor do they know how to interact with them, but it is through volunteerism and handling and interacting with other elderly make them able to understand more about the life of their grandparents, as well as knowing how to interact with them, as well as at the same time they can learn their own dialect through this process, and also can promote cross-generation learning, where they can teach the elderly certain things that they are not aware of in exchange what they learn from the elderly. And this is why I wanted to do this activity and do up this research topic, so that I can promote this culture and dialect speaking, and building to promote intergeneration communication between the millennials and the elderly. Moving on to the activities to meet my objective for this research topic, I have two activities in mind. The first one is to do a yummy cooking session with the grandparents and the grandchildren, or it also can be for the elderly who does not have any grandchildren, and with the youth. So my target audience in this activity includes the elderly and the youth, and this activity will be held at the Marina Barrage Green Roof Sea, and it will be held once a month, which is per session is about 5 hours. And what's the reason for me to do this activity is that I hope that we can pass down the dialect culture food to, like, from the grandparents to the grandchildren, or from the elderly to the youth, as well as to foster closer relationship between these two main target audience, because many of us today are really busy and hectic with our own lifestyle, and therefore we do not have time to spend with them. And I hope that it is through this that we can actually not only foster closer relationship, but as well as we can also learn our own dialect while communicating with them, and to also at the same time learn our own culture food and how to cook all this food, so that we are able to pass down to the future generation. Moving on to the activity 2 that I have in mind, which is the tea and interactive time with elderly. This activity, the purpose I want to achieve is to encourage youth to actually strike up a dialect conversation with the elderly, as well as to foster cross-generation learning between these two generations. This can actually help the youth to actually teach the elderly some Mandarin or English, and in return the elderly can actually teach them some dialects. This activity will actually be held at Jalan Besar, and my target audience for this activity is the elderly and the youth. So this activity will be held 2 times per month, and each session is about 3 hours per session. Happen at Jalan Besar is a venue that allows people to gather and have a mini training session or conference or seminar workshops venue. And besides providing this area, they also have facilities such as mahjong tables, as well as console games such as Xbox and PlayStation. And I find that this venue is very suitable for this activity because besides letting this youth and elderly gather at a place and just sitting down and chit chat over some snacks and drinks, I also want to use this opportunity where they can actually engage with one another through other activities such as like mahjongs, and getting other facility that this venue provide, so that they can actually be more interactive besides just sitting down and chit chat. Moving on, I'll be talking on the grants that I will need for my activities. In any activities that you do, you definitely need monetary value for you to rent all these venues that you need for your activities, so that you can run your activities smoothly and have a place that you can actually help your activities at. So for me, I will now talk on these 2 organizations that I hope I can get the grants from to help to support my activities, so that I can achieve my objective for this research topic. The first up will be the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, in short is MCCY, through the scheme Young Changemaker. MCCY is a government organization that seeks to inspire Singaporeans through arts and sports, strengthening community bonds, and promote volunteerism and philanthropy. This organization actually helps to promote volunteerism and encouraging youth to participate and contribute to the community. YCM is actually a scheme that provides seed funding for youth projects benefiting Singapore's community and society. The next one will be the Central Singapore CDC, and I hope to get the fund from the Do Good Fund. Their organization believes that everyone wants to contribute and do goods in Singapore, and they wanted to promote in a way that they encourage youth to participate in voluntary and to do good deeds as well. And I hope that through this fund I can encourage youth to participate in this activity and as a form of volunteerism, so that they can actually learn more about the culture and the dialects, as well as how the interaction, building and closer relationship between the youth and the elderly, because many of the youth today are really busy with their own lifestyle in terms of their studies, and some of them are even working part-time. So I hope that it is through these activities they can actually spare some time for volunteerism, as well as they can also use it as a chance for them to build closer relationship with the elderly. Moving on, I'll be talking about the volunteers that I need for my activities. In any activities or event that you actually help or organize, you definitely need manpower, and it is the same as me. In order for me to carry out and run this activity smoothly, so that I can meet my objective for this research project, I need manpower to help me run these activities. And as you know that my target audience for my activities are the youth, so I have sourced these 2 suitable organizations that actually caters and meet my requirements. These 2 organizations are firstly the Youth Corps Singapore, and secondly the People Association Youth Movement, which is PAYM in short. And Youth Corps Singapore and People Association Youth Movement, the both organizations actually promotes and encourage youth to participate in volunteerism and contribute to the society. I hope that it is through this activity they can participate as a volunteer as well as they could even bring their own grandparents to this activity so that they can actually build closer relationship with their grandparents. And it is also through this activity that I hope that they also can learn their own culture and their own dialect and share and mingle around with other elderlies as well as the other youth around on that day for the activities. Lastly, I'll be showing you how I actually utilize this money if I'm able to receive this grant amount from the two above organizations that I mentioned earlier in my grant slide. As you can see in this cost breakdown table, the amount that I'm looking to achieve is actually $2,000. Before I move in detail on how I actually gonna use this money, I would like to tell you that this is actually based on per month basis and not per year basis. Therefore, 2,000 is actually sufficient enough for per month to run my activities. As you can see that I have two activities in mind, and I mentioned earlier in the two other slides on my activities. The first activity is on the yummy cooking session, which I will be doing it at the Marina Barrage, Green Roof Sea. And I only need this money for venue rental because I'm not actually using the money for manpower, as I wanted to encourage volunteerism for the youth so that they actually can spare some time on their own to actually do something meaningful and as well as something engaging that they can learn and also to contribute back to the society or the community in Singapore. So this $2,000, I'll be using it for my venue rental for my two activities. Mainly the first venue rental will be at Marina Barrage for my yummy cooking session. So half a day will be 1,350 that they will be charging, and since my activity is 1 month 1 time basis, therefore per month if this activity is going to run, it will cost $1,350. For my activity 2 will be on the tea session with elderly, which is happen at Jalan Besar. In this case, my activity is going to base on an hourly rate, and because this session is actually a very chill and relaxed session for the elderly as well as the youth, where they can actually sit down and interact with one another and actually to communicate with one another. My purpose is actually hoping that they can actually promote cross-generation learning, where both generation can teach one another different things. And in this case, Happen Jalan Besar, they actually charge 1 hour at $101, and because my session is 3 hours each, so it will cost about $303 for each session. And because it's going to help 2 times per month, and therefore you'll cost up to $606. With that, my venue will end up in total a cost of $1,956. And you can see that the $2,000 that I intend to get from the organization is actually sufficient enough to cover this cost. And with that, I shall end my presentation. Thank you.